start looking at the letters to the churches. I started diagramming our study, so as we go along and fill up the walls, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. So we had our first vision, was the vision of Son of Man last time. Remember with the 7 golden lampstands that represented the 7 churches. In his hands were the 7 stars representing the pastors. And he had a long robe, gold sash, white hair, eyes of fire, feet like burnished bronze, voice of many waters, face like the sun, and a mouth speaking with a 2-edged sword. Today we're going to start the seven churches, 7 letters to 7 churches. I'm hoping we get through the first four. It's the second chapter. We'll see. So, if we look again, is that good?
That's good.
And where our story unfolds, it's in Turkey or Asia Minor in the old days. And when Paul talks about, in Acts or Romans, where he says he's really focusing on Asia and the word is spread throughout Asia, it's Turkey. So Turkey was, and it's really Western Turkey, populated area, the seat of power of the Roman Empire in this area. And then again, the 7 churches. So the first one we're going to look at is Ephesus. We're going to do Pergamum, Thyatira, Smyrna. So it's the Western churches. And so the first one looking at Ephesus. So Ephesus was this grand place back in the day. And if you all remember Ephesus, what's one of the more famous scenes in Acts in Ephesus? You all remember? Where Paul is speaking right there in the theater. And he's received warmly and welcomed as always, and they're happy to have him.
I've never seen this picture.
Oh, you never see the picture? So and you'll see the water is right here, close to the theater, and there's the central. I think this is the palace. Maybe I've read it sometime before, and I don't remember what all is what. But I do have another picture. This is what's there today. This is what's left of the.
Sure.
You've been there, right?
Right. I was go back to the other picture, and what amazed me was that Dale and I walked like from I guess it would be from the far right down that street there, and then up to the theater, and then back out that other street towards what was the water then. It wasn't. Yeah. It's not there now. That's pretty fascinating.
How much of that is, in totality, is left these days?
Well, I'm about to show you.
They look like that.
Yeah. So
it's one of the most fascinating archaeological finds, and it hasn't been discovered that terribly long.
So this is
it's in our lifetime.
This is Google Earth, and so this is sort of, I guess, modern day Ephesus, but the Ephesus of old is back up here.
And it was on the water.
It's on the water, and
see how far it is?
Yeah, we're trying to find it. I lost it.
Well, House of Mary, that would be it.
Is that it? Okay.
Look at you go.
And so you scroll, you zoom right in, and is this it, Ken? I had it earlier.
I'm sorry. I may have messed you up.
No, I messed myself up. I had it all planned, and I messed it up. Because you can see, I think this is it. No, it's not it.
To the north.
Oh, here it is. Here, yeah, you're right. Okay, so that's right. So this is the town of Smyrna. This is Ephesus. This right here is the body of water in that previous picture. So you can see this whole area had been silted in, but it was originally, the was a body of water, and there was a canal.
Yeah, there's a way to get.
There was a way to get to it.
This is a port city.
This is a port city. You see this little river? This little river connected down to this body of water right here, and the city. Here's the city, and here's the stadium.
Yeah, Celsus Library. It's quite a dig area. A lot of it's standing.
So it's still so this is the street you walk down.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
And there was another pier over here.
I don't remember seeing that, but I've slept a few times.
How far was that walk?
It's a pretty good walk.
Yeah, so it's a real place. It's not, you know, sometimes it's easy just to dismiss these things, you know, and then some kind of long.
There's kind of a bathhouse across from that library. Quite interesting. Bathhouse and public latrine.
Public latrine. All right. So, in the interest of time, let's dive right into the books. No more introduction. So we're in Revelation 2. If I can find it. All right. Someone read the letter to the church at Ephesus.
To the angel of the church in Ephesus write, these are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. I know your deeds, your hard work, and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked men, that you have tested those who claim to be apostles but are not, and have found them false. You have persevered and have endured hardships for my name, and have not grown weary. Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken your first love. Remember the height from which you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. If you do not repent, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place. But you have this in your favor. You hate the practice of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear to what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God.
Okay, so the city was an important city. The Pergamum was the capital city, but this was referred to as Asia's greatest city. It was a trade city. It was epicenter of trade. There was a market of Asia was there. It was called the Market of Asia. It's silted in now, obviously, but it was the place where there was just kind of a melting pot between trade with peoples coming from east and west. It was the place to be. Does anyone know who founded the church at Ephesus? A couple of people, husband and wife team.
Priscilla and Aquila.
Priscilla and Aquila.
There you go.
That's right. So they were the ones who founded it. And they came with Paul, and they stayed there while Paul went on to Antioch. And Antioch was the church where what term was first used? Christian. The term Christian was first used there. So Paul returned 3 or 4 years later, or 2 or 3 years later, and he stayed about 2 years preaching. So it's a good, solid foundation. In Ephesus was also a famous wonder of the ancient world. Anyone remember who that is? Which one that is? It was the temple of Artemis, if you're Roman, or Diana if you're Greek, or vice versa. I don't remember which one it is. One of the great, I thought I had a picture of it, but I don't. So the books, if you look at this, the books start off, there's an introduction, and he says, the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand. So each of these often refer back to this original vision of God. So he's talking about holding seven 7 stars. So this isn't the word from John. This is a word from the Son of Man. And among the 7 golden lampstands. And so there's an introduction, and then there's in all of these books except for one, there's a commendation. There's a encouragement. Something saying you guys are doing this great, but then there's a condemnation after that. I got something you gotta tend to, you gotta deal with. And then it's a condemnation or criticism, and then there's sort of a call to move forward in faith in each of these books, except for one. One of the books doesn't have a commendation at all. It's not good. So in this one, it says, I know your works, and what does he know? What is the commendation here?
I cannot tolerate wicked men.
What's that?
You can't tolerate wicked men.
Yeah.
Yep. And but even before that,
Yeah, you're working hard.
you're working hard.
You're patient endurance.
Yeah. So toil. I mean, think about toil. The word toil. That just means grinding out, right? I mean, it's not you're gonna be this great, glorious, always preaching the word. It means sometimes you just got to grind it out. You got to toil. You got to till the farm, till the land, till the soil, and plant the seeds, and eventually things will start to grow. But you got to toil, and you got to be patient. So you plant the seed, you water it. Does the seed immediately grow? You got to be patient. But you got to be patient with the world around you. You got to be patient. He said you've been patient with what's going on. You're patient with perhaps unbelievers. Patient with the world. Patient with persecution. You're enduring through it.
These people were also fighting. One of the biggest industries there was the manufacture of images of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So they had that all around them, on top of everything else.
Yep, absolutely. So you're patient, and you cannot bear with those who are evil. But have tested those who call themselves apostles and are not, and found them to be false. So that's a great commendation. You don't bear with these guys who are evil, the people that are in the church. Remember 1 John. We looked at 1 John last time. John had a particular focus on heresy in the body and calling out people who were deceivers, and early Gnosticism, early spiritualism, and we'll see this in some other books. Early spiritualism that weren't necessarily of God, and so those are all certainly good things. And what else is some of the things? What's in verse 3?
Persevere and endure hardship in thy name.
What's that?
You have persevered. and
Yeah,
endured
persevered.
in thy name.
Persevered again, toiled. All right, so then he goes to 4, and that's all great. That's all great stuff. So he goes to verse 4, and what does he say?
To abandon the love you had at the first.
Yeah. And so, what's that love? What's that mean? What's that mean to you guys?
I would
Well,
think,
They lost their zeal for God. This was second generation mostly that was involved in this. And they were still doing work. They were still zealous in the community. It was mostly for themselves, not for God as it should be.
Mm-hmm. Could it become ritualistic? I mean, you can clearly be ritualistic and not put up with evil and not put up with heresy, but it doesn't mean that you have love in your ministry, right?
I was doing some work on this last couple of weeks, and I wondered if it could be that they lost their evangelistic zeal. The love that they had at first made them zealous to share the good news, and now they've got a good name, they're doing good stuff, operating the church well,
Mm-hmm.
but their evangelism has waned.
Yeah. And who hasn't been there?
Yeah.
Haven't we all been there at times? I mean, there's peaks and valleys. We're not always on the mountaintop. Sometimes we're in the valley. I've been in the valley for a couple of years, and I feel like I'm climbing back, slowly with God's help.
Out of the 7 churches, I identify with this one really well. Also because of where it was. Ephesus reminds me a great deal of that city on the other side of the bridge.
New Orleans.
It's a port city, worships all kinds of stuff that aren't right. And yet there's believers who are strong in that city.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if the evangelistic zeal has waned. This has us all over.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Interesting observation. This is 5. Remember, therefore, where you have fallen. Repent and do the works you did at first. Again, just calling them. Think back. All of us. Think back when you were first Christian, when you were on the mountaintop. How did you feel? How did you think? How were your actions? What did you say and do? And are you doing them now? If not, think back and do it and remember them. And do those works that you did at first. And if you don't, what is he going to do?
Remove the lampstand.
Which means what? Is that removing salvation? Or is that removing the body?
I think it'll
Church? What do you think?
shut you down. Well, if you think about the vision from the first chapter, he says that he is in the middle of the lampstands, which represent the church.
Mm-hmm.
He takes away the lampstand. What's he saying?
It would cease to be an effective church.
Yeah.
The light would go out.
Yeah.
Maybe Episcopalians. They just
Oh,
sorry.
my
They'd just be meeting.
Pick
Edit that.
You can pick lots of them.
No, but they just meet. They just meet as the Unitarian Universalist. Absolutely, they're just a social club. They just meet and chat and complain about Christians, basically. And then you also hate the work of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. And we don't know much about the Nicolaitans, but obviously there was some heresy going on there. And again, John is keen on heresy in the church in these early crazy, not just heresies against the church, but I think his focus was heresies within the church, false teachings that started that. And again, remember the epistles, the gospels, they weren't in all the churches. Everybody didn't have them. So there are all these kind of little offshoots and splinters of things that were starting, and John was really focused on that in his teachings. And then in 7, he says, and this is in other parts of Scripture too, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. All right, so how do you guys interpret that? I think it's pretty easy myself. I think it simply means if you're a Christian, you have an ear to hear. A lot of people won't. They can hear, you can talk to them fervently about the Word, and they just plain simply don't have an ear to hear. It goes in one ear and out the other, and it never sets. There's hostility to hearing to the Word, and so it's gone. You can read this book till the cows come home, and they'll never hear it. Their ears will not hear what's said. And to the one who conquers, I'll grant to eat to the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God. So the promise that you'll get the privilege of the tree of life if you come and follow. All right, so the short one, Smyrna. Smyrna is just north of Ephesus. Someone read that.
To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, or a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death.
All right, so Smyrna. Smyrna was a major city. It's like the size of Baton Rouge in current days, about 200,000 people. One of the largest population centers in Roman Asia. It was a real strong ally of Rome, obviously. It was a planned city, a famous stadium, library, public theater, largest public theater in Asia. It had this special relationship with Rome. In fact, it was a center of cult worship. And it won the right and privilege to build the first temple in honor of Tiberius for emperor worship. There were 11 other cities competing for it. It was like the Olympic Games. They had big competition, and Smyrna won. And there we build the emperor worship. So it became compulsory, as we talked about under Domitian, emperor worship. And then there was a large Jewish population that was also kind of hostile to Christians as well. Don't know exactly how Smyrna came to be a Christian church, how the church was established, but Paul talks about in 19 reaching all of Asia. So it's probably one of his ministries. In the introduction in 8, he says, "The words of the first and the last who died and came to life." So it's clearly talking about who? Jesus. But there's also sort of an analogy of a backdrop of Smyrna died and came back to life. So Smyrna, there was an ancient Smyrna that was prosperous, and it was sacked about 300 or 350 BC, and then it was reconceived and started rebuilding under Alexander the Great, about 300 BC. And so it was well known that it had been rebuilt, so it had died, and then came back as another city. There's an interesting people came from Smyrna. Anyone know some early church fathers, apostles of apostles, disciples of the apostles? Anyone know? One of them who was martyred, we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Polycarp.
Good for you. You're reading your cheat sheet. That's right. So Polycarp was there. Ignatius had visited Polycarp there in Smyrna. And he was the bishop of Smyrna, and wrote him a letter. Irenaeus also visited him. Irenaeus was also from Smyrna. So there was some real strong Christian activity going on in Smyrna, not just at this time, but after. So, in a short thing, in 9, I know your tribulation and your poverty. So, referring to what in the tribulation? Is this the 7 years there's to come later, or is this? This is the tribulation. There, I know your tribulation. You're being persecuted. You're suffering, and you're poor. Any correlation between the poverty and tribulation? Probably.
Probably so.
Probably so. This was a bustling city with a hostile Roman church and a hostile Jewish population. Chances are, it was tough to get two nickels to rub together here. So, but he said, "But you are rich." So, the juxtaposition between poverty and material standpoint and richness in what? Spirit, obviously. So he commends them. It says that there are those who say that they're Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. It says, know your tribulation, your poverty, and the slander. So people have been slandered. They were slandered perhaps by the Jewish population, perhaps by others. And the Jews, he says that those are Jews who are not. Who does Paul says are the real Jews in other verses, in other scriptures? He says the real Jews, the true Jews, are the Christians.
Yeah, those who
follow Christ, follow the Messiah, are the true Jews. So John's piggybacking on that, and saying those that think they're real Jews but are not, but they're a synagogue of Satan. So he's pretty direct, pretty in their face about what the synagogue is all about.
yeah.
Because the synagogue, maybe if the synagogue wasn't persecuting, it was probably because they're persecuting. Maybe the synagogue wasn't persecuting, maybe it wouldn't call them den of Satan, but maybe it would just say they're wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Jews in name only. They were
Yeah.
the Janos.
And so he says in 10, don't fear what you're about to suffer. So remember, this book is about comforting persecuted Christians. Doesn't mean they're not going to be persecuted. It doesn't mean they're not going to suffer, and it doesn't mean they're not going to die. In fact, he says right here, do not fear what you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested. For 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, as I will give you the crown of life. So he's saying, some of you are going to suffer. 10 days is probably not literal, it's probably figurative.
Just meant for a short time.
Or a time. Or maybe it may be complete time. It may be the
Short time in comparison to eternity.
eternity. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
But it could be total suffering.
Yeah.
10 being a complete total number. So he says, be faithful, and if you're faithful unto death, what will you get?
Crown of life.
Crown of life.
The crown of life. That's right. So again, giving the hope that's there. And again, he who has a ear, let him hear. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death.
Smyrna was famous for its athletic games, and the winner was crowned, and they could realize,
Yeah.
they could relate to that, to the crown of the winner, as them being a winner,
Okay.
ultimately.
Good. All right, so let's Pergamum.
So there was no negative comment for Smyrna.
no.
That's
It
right.
was almost all encouraging words and observation of things.
Yep. All right, Pergamum. I'll read that. And to the angel of the church of Pergamum write the words of him who has the sharp two-edged sword. Again, sharp two-edged sword, the Son of Man. I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is, yet you hold fast my name, and you did not deny my faith, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. So also, you have some who hold the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Therefore repent, if not, I'll come to you soon and war against them with the sword in my mouth. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone with a new name written on it, that no one except the one who receives it. No one knows except the one who receives it. All right. We're not getting through this way too much there. All right.
I thought you were being very aggressive.
Yeah. Gary, are you okay if we take a little longer than I was thinking with this series?
No, I'm not. We're not on a time frame.
Okay.
We're here to learn.
Okay. All right. So this was the capital of Roman province. It wasn't as important as Ephesus commercially, but politically and religiously, it was, and culturally, it was the tops. It had a library. You all know about the library in Alexandria, not Louisiana, but Alexandria, Egypt, was the greatest library of the ancient world until Mr. Muhammad burned it to the ground because we don't want, I think it was Muhammad, maybe it was his followers. Ken, do you know that? Anybody know that?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was the Muslims did. I don't know if it was after or not, but either way, that was burned to the ground. So this had a library that was the second largest, had 200,000 volumes. It was a seat of emperor worship. First temple to Emperor Augustus was built there in AD 29, probably. Observance of the worship of the emperor became a test of loyalty to Rome. So you had to profess. And the Jews had some exceptions in this, but if you weren't Jewish, that was your test of loyalty. High treason was considered the offense if you didn't partake. And there was the city, the Acropolis in the city. It had a great altar to Zeus, standing on a platform cut out of a rock on a hill that was covered with temples that dominated the city. So emperor worship was the view. It was the standard. I'm sorry, pagan worship was the view, and the standard along with emperor worship. The commendation. Let's look at the commendation real quick. I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is, yet you hold fast to my name. And you do not deny my faith, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you. So, we don't know anything about Antipas, right? Other than what's in here. I think that's the general idea. But he was obviously a man of God, and he was obviously martyred, right? And so we talked about a couple weeks ago, persecution is the blood of the martyr is seed for the Christian faith. So it was early Christian days, martyrdom, persecution just made the gospel grow like wildfire. Those who were lukewarm in the faith would fall away, and those who were committed to the faith would persevere, and they would just be on fire. We see, well, not persecution. You just in the days today. I think evangelism is stronger in the United States with the serious body of believers than when I was a kid. There was evangelism. There were a lot of fine Christians, but I think people now are sharper. The committed Christians are sharper and more committed to evangelism in the face of persecution than they were 30 or 40 years ago. That's my belief, just what I see. And I'm not saying it's persecution, but just with the world, the more the world becomes hostile to Christianity, I think Christianity becomes sharper and stronger. And that's what happened. That's what happened there, and that's what was happening in this time. So, Antipas, the death of Antipas didn't change anything. So it says, I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. It could refer to the pagan city, or the worship of the serpent god, or Zeus. But either way, either it's referring to the pagan worship, or it's referring to emperor worship. Either way, the worship that was going on there was Satan's work. There's no doubt about it. So, the condemnation. What is the condemnation?
Some held on to the teaching of Balaam.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So what is that referring to? Anybody remember the Balaam and Balak story? Melinda, you just went through it.
Numbers.
Yeah, and he couldn't get the people to turn, can't remember what he couldn't get them to do, so he subtly undermined their faith by getting them to worship idols and
Exactly. That's right.
sexual.
So he originally got Balak was the king of Moab, and he got Balaam, who was a prophet, but not a friendly prophet, to come in and curse Israel. But God worked through Balaam and restrained him, and so Balaam blessed Israel instead of cursing him, because Israel was a threat to Moab. And so they went through and they got got the women, the Moabite women, to seduce the Israelite men, and then got them to eat or to participate in idol sacrifices and sexual immorality, and ultimately, was tremendous impact on Israel. And so what he's saying here, a few things against you. You have some there hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught that Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. So, interesting. The implication here is that there was either, again, pagan worship going on all over the place, emperor worship going too. It's either a reference to food, procuring food, purchasing food from the market. There was meat for animals that were sacrificed in the market. They were sacrificed in the temple. Meat was sold in the market. Or it could refer to feasts, various feasts in the temple that people were participating in. Either way, they were participating in pagan rituals. Paul had said in chapter 8 and 10, he said that there's no, in 1 Corinthians, he had said that there's nothing unclean of itself unless it calls someone to stumble. But in chapter 10, he said it's impossible to drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of the demons. In the case, it must have reference to actual participation in the temple. So it says you can't participate, you can't eat the things that are given to idols. Even Paul said that. And so this is referring to that. And then sexual immorality. What was going on at the time in the pagan temples with sexual immorality? Anybody know?
Temple prostitutes.
Temple prostitutes. Part of the worship experience was right there at the altar and in the pagan temples, having sexual, intercourse with the temple prostitutes. Exactly. And so he's saying the church of Pergamum that some, not all, some people are participating in eating of the pagan food. Some are participating in the sexual practices, and some also hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. So again, we don't know. It's from the previous one as well. We don't know who the Nicolaitans are, but clearly they are a strain of teachings that they can't do. So he says, therefore repent, I'll come to you soon, and war against them with the sword in my mouth. He who doesn't hear, let him hear. And then to one who conquers, I give hidden manna. So food, hidden food, probably the food of God, just the bread of life. And I'll give him a white stone. And a white stone referred to, I have to look that up because I don't remember it. In the ancient world, white stone had a variety of uses, including white stone being acquitted. So black stone was like by a jury. They brought black stone in its conviction. White stone meaning acquitted. That's what came from the jury as the meaning. So white stone meaning that you're acquitted. With a new name written on the stones that no one knows except those who receive it. So new stone on the bread of life. I mean, on the book of life. So that's the church at Pergamum.
I think this reminds us of us because we're so desensitized to what's happening around us that we're worshiping idols that we don't even realize we are doing it. We're allowing things into our homes, and to me, that's what
That's a good
that's
point.
what we're doing a lot too.
That's a good point. Absolutely. All right. So those are the three churches. First three churches. Any thoughts? Commentary?
The more things change, the more they remain the same.
That's true.
Isn't that true?
Because everything is just around and around and around.
Wasn't
This-
it?
This could be today.
Yeah. Wasn't it? Not Ezekiel. Who was it who said, "There's nothing new under the sun"? Ecclesiastes. Yeah, it was Solomon. Ecclesiastes said, "Nothing new under the sun. It's all been around."
I think that one of the most profound things that in this class that I heard today was your declaration that you believe, and I agree with you 100%, that our zealousness is increased as people come against Christians. 50 years ago, we weren't under the pressures, the attacks that we are today. So everyone's kind of laid back. Yeah, I'm a Christian. We'll go to church Sunday and we'll read the Bible and go to Sunday school and that. But we are truly seeing today some of in America for the first time, I think, or at least the worst time, us being under attack from non-Christians, from other religions, and that for us is I'm starting to consider us as part of the remnant now. I mean, that's how, to me, what it's getting to be. It's increased our zealousness. True believers are starting to understand, because of the teachings, understand what's going on a second time or a third time or whatever, however many times it is, that we are under attack, and what God expects of us and gives us the power to do is to reach out and become more zealous, is to evangelize more than we have in the past.
Yeah, I think you look objectively. A little nothing church in Mandeville. Look at what we do. We've got ministries going on all over the world. We've got lay people, not just pastors. It was when we were a kid, it was the pastors who were doing the hard work, and the lay people were just getting fed. And pretty much it. Getting fed and going home. And you may have some nice conversations with your friends, but you weren't out doing the kind of things that we're doing. And a lot of other churches are the same way.
Well, I don't know if you've heard this or not, and I haven't really followed up on it, but I did hear it over the week. I spent a lot of time driving and listening to the radio this past week. And there are 1,000 black churches who their pastors are going to start calling for their people to go to the streets about this marriage dictate, the Supreme Court. And what an opportunity for white and black and red and green to combine to why don't we go out and protest this also? I mean, it's something that God is saying, okay, here's something that all my people can get together and discuss and make known our feelings about it. And I think I don't know what's happening. I don't know how far along we are in our biblical teaching, but I'm telling you, something's happening out there that is, I'm so anxious to see how this all comes about. I really think that it's the stirrings of something great that among the Christian people.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let me close. Dear Lord, just thank you again for this weekend, Lord. Just pray that you will be with us as a church, as a body, to look to you for guidance, Lord. Just all of our actions will help to glorify you, and Lord, that just people will see you through us, Lord. Just help our community of churches, Lord, the remnant, if you will, that are really committed to following you, Lord. Just be with them, give them the strength through difficult times, Lord. Praise in Jesus' name.
Amen.